Good afternoon and welcome. We're very pleased to have you with us, and we're looking forward to another great discussion with you this afternoon. My name is Tom Tinder, and I'm an attorney in Charleston, West Virginia.
Hi, I'm Emmanuel Caudillo, Senior Advisor with the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative in Washington, D.C.
And I am Jen Howell, the Co-Executive Director of Virginia Civics, the home of the Virginia We the People program.
Please introduce yourselves and your teacher.
I'm Delaney Johnson.
I'm Jaden Dare.
I'm Abby Carlson, and this is our teacher, Mrs. Nolan.
Great. Guess what? We're going to do question number 2 today, and let me read it to you very quickly. No society, certainly not a large and heterogeneous one, can fail in time to explode if it is deprived of the arts of compromise. No good society can be unprincipled, and no viable society can be principle-ridden. Do you agree or disagree with this opinion? What compromises were made at the Constitutional Convention of 1787? What are the benefits and costs of those compromises? And how would you distinguish between someone who is, quote, unprincipled, close quote, and someone who is, quote, principle-ridden, close quote? You may begin.
The Constitutional Convention of 1787 was initially called to revise the Articles of Confederation, which structured the government into confederation. However, the Articles quickly failed. During the Convention of 1787, it was decided that due to this inability of the federal government to enforce laws and collect taxes, the Articles had to come to an end. Yet discussion during this convention also led to other problems. During the convention, many compromises were made and included in the Constitution. One of the compromises included was the 3/5 Compromise. In Article 1, Section 2, it states representatives will be appointed depending on their state's population, including the 3/5 of slaves. This benefited the southern states. The agreement cost the Northerners because the 3/5 of slave population would not be counted towards the southern states. The South states would get disproportionate representation in the House, causing conflict with the Northerners. Speaking of representation, another agreement recalled was the Great Compromise. This compromise provided a bicameral system of congressional representation. In the established House of Representatives, we were presented with proportional representation in Article 1, Section 2. It states the House of Representatives based on their population.
However, in the Senate, all states get equal representation. As mandated in Article 1, Section 3, the Senate will elect a whole of 2 senators from each state. This helped solve a lot of problems. An assembly of delegates acted on behalf of the states they represented because the smaller states feared the domination of the larger ones. Each state had 1 vote in the Confederation Congress, regardless of its size or population. This ultimately was unfair for the larger states who wished to have proportional representation, hence the Great Compromise. It benefited both the large and small states in some parts. This solved the problem, leaving all the states satisfied. However, as nothing is perfect, there were certain flaws. For instance, though the small states benefited greatly from the Senate, they received equal representation. They were detrimental when it came to the House of Representatives with their proportional representation, vice versa for the larger states. Thirdly, a compromise with great purpose today was the decision to form an electoral college. Article 2, Section 1 states that each state will appoint electors equal to the number of senators and representatives, but no person holding the office will be elected towards the college. The Electoral College helped determine our nation's president every 4 years. The Founding Fathers established it in the Constitution as compromise between the election of the president by a vote in Congress and the election of the president by a popular vote of qualified citizens.
The benefit that arose through this compromise included a guarantee that, to an extent, a certainty of the outcome of the presidential election would occur. However, though what we stated earlier is true, this concordance had certain flaws as well. It is ultimately the elector's decision. Still, we use the Electoral College today, along with the other compromises as well. Alexander Bickel, who loved the idea of compromises, believed that society needed to have good, solid principles. Simultaneously, no successful society can be all law and no choice. Without choice, society becomes a dictatorship and the people have no say. We agree that this quote is fairly accurate. In an unprincipled society, you are almost living in a state of nature. For in the words of John Locke, wherever law ends, tyranny begins. Locke, who spent a part of his life studying political philosophy, believed strongly in a proper society. Although you can't let laws be the only voice in government, consider an overprotective school. Though the rules are there to protect the students, eventually the same students will turn rebellious. When you live under a principle-ridden government, you will find that there's no freedom and it can lead to rebellion. Therefore, in concurrence with Alexander Bickel, there must be a balance of both. The United States of America has that equal balance. We have laws, but still have so many freedoms. It is very important to have that equipoise of law and freedom. Thank you for listening. We are now ready to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let's go back to your comments about the Electoral College. There are now proposals to either make changes in the Electoral College system or to do away with it and use just the direct vote of the public, of the people to elect our president. What do you think? Should there be changes made in the Electoral College? And if so, what would they be?
I believe that we should keep the Electoral College as it is. If we were to do away with it, for example, the largest states would ultimately dominate the election, such as California, New York, or Texas. Their population is so large that it'll totally get rid of all the small states. Take California, it is a very democratic state. If California were to vote, it will ultimately take down any other Republican states that are maybe tiny.
The next question here is, compromise is often called an art. Is that an apt description? Why or why not?
I think it is because compromises are a very important thing. And I think that they helped America because, like, obviously that we would have been in more arguments if we didn't have any compromises.
I agree with my colleague. I believe compromises are very important, even in our everyday lives. When we, for example, take our quarantine, our teachers were very gracious with us in the beginning of it all, helping us learn yet have a little breathing time as well, instead of being on a computer the entire day.
Why do you think it's so difficult for Americans to compromise over some of today's major issues?
I believe that Americans should compromise over today's major issues because if we didn't, we would have a lot of disagreement, and we already have enough disagreement going on. So I think them compromising and figuring it out helps our nation all together, because then we don't have to worry about different problems from, like, say, each state or even each region.
Though I agree with my colleague's answer, I believe it is hard for America specifically to make compromises because we are humans and we have that selfishness inside us. It is very hard to ignore, and no human will ever be perfect and never think of themselves first.
You talked about unprincipled and principle ridden, and what I'd like for you to do is to name a national leader, past or present, that is either unprincipled or principle ridden, and tell us why you have that opinion.
I believe a very well-known principle-ridden leader would have been Hitler in the time of the Nazi rule in Germany. He made so many laws, especially against the Jews, that it came to a point where Jews weren't allowed out of their own homes and even hunted eventually.
I want to go with this next question. We talk about compromise and its importance, especially in today's world. One thing that was lacking that wasn't in 1787 when they were making these great compromises was social media. That's new in today's realm. And so I want to get your thoughts about that. I know Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and all different platforms. Do you think that social media makes it difficult to compromise? Why or why not?
I believe that it does make it difficult to compromise because on social media platforms, everybody can state their opinion. And once you know everybody's opinion, it may not agree with your own opinion. So I think it makes it harder to compromise because there's not very many people that can stop the argument on the platforms. So people just keep going and going until they feel like they have overcome the argument.
An example of this would be a current Supreme Court case that is going on right now with a certain girl and a Snapchat post that went pretty viral. She had said something about her school that greatly offended it about not getting on a varsity cheerleading team. And now it has gone to court trying to determine whether it was imposing on her freedom of speech and whether it should be dismissed. I believe that things like this can make it really hard to compromise because, like Jaden stated, it's very hard to look past your own opinion and try to see what other people want to see, like how they see it.
So how do you think we can overcome some of these difficulties in reaching compromise now?
I think the best way we can do it is look past our own selfish desires and look at how someone else might view their worldview. Especially in politics, there's a lot of clashing, I'm looking for the word, opinions about Democrats or liberals or Republicans, and all our views are so very different. I think ultimately we should try harder to become friends with those people and try to see how they see the world.
You mentioned about an overprotective school. Give us an example of a compromise that has occurred in your school between the principal and the school officials and the students.
An example is we have a dress code here where we have to wear polos and jeans, and some of the student council kids took it to the staff of the school that we should be allowed to wear striped polos, and then the staff accepted that, so now we're allowed to wear striped polos to school.
Another compromise that we have come up with students used to have to wear dresses or dress up for our chapel days here at school on Thursdays. And now we no longer have to do that. We can just come in our everyday school clothes.
That was very well done. Let me start off by expressing our great appreciation to your teacher for doing such a great job in preparing you for this. I really enjoyed your initial presentation, and I specifically want to commend you for the excellent examples that you gave, not only in your opening presentation, but in your response to our answers. You know, we mentioned that to you yesterday, and you certainly took it to heart. And I don't know if you were working late last night to include some examples, but your examples were spot on with that overprotective school and the pandemic and the Supreme Court case. and others. You really did a good job of giving us examples to highlight and to support your positions and your opinions. Very well done. You know, you all are truly inspiring. I mean, it's inspiring for us to have the opportunity to listen to your presentations and to interact with you and have these sort of discussions. As we said yesterday, you have a tremendous amount of knowledge and leadership, and you must continue to utilize those in your school and in your community and in your state. And if you will do that, then we're going to have a bright future. Thank you very, very much, and congratulations to you, and very best of luck to you.
I'd like to commend you on a great presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed just hearing your opening statements, just providing just the different facts of these compromises made in the Constitutional Convention. I liked how you put it to where you're at right now in school. I know sometimes it might be hard to put ourselves more in like the political process because we're not a voting age just yet. But someplace where it can be featured is in your school. And you brought up many specific examples about schools, whether it's through dress codes and the art of compromising with administrators and the students. Even with the Supreme Court, with the Snapchat post, I think that's be a pretty big one when the court decides that this summer, and the different things even on social media. And so I'm glad that you use that. I mean, this is what this is. This is we don't just talk about these ideas and these compromises that were made in 1787 and we just rehash them. No, we talk about them, how it affects us today. And I'm glad that you all did that during your presentation. So I commend you, and I urge you to continue doing this. Keep diving into civic engagement, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for engaging in this process and having a conversation with us. I really liked your opening statement and how organized it was, and everything was very well stated, and it was very clear what you were trying to say. And then when we got into the follow-up questions, you guys pulled out this thread that I think is really important to understand, which is that humans are selfish, and this is something that, Madison realized pretty early on, just human beings are imperfect. We're always going to be imperfect. And so how do we construct a system of government that helps us to sort of get over this self-interestedness, right? And it's a process that requires things like civil discourse and sitting down and listening to other people and having the ability to, have supporting evidence for your arguments, like the examples that you guys were bringing, or the ability to disagree with each other in a respectful way, the ability to sit down and just really listen. And that's what you guys showed me, is that you really understand that this is, through your presentation today, you showed me that you get it. You're talking about the same things that Madison was talking about, and you're living out his ideals in what you're talking about here and how you're conducting yourself. So I just want to say that we're super proud of everything that you did, and thank you so much for doing this with us.